Good morning, everybody. It's your friendly host, Justin McDonald, here with another installment of how we get results from quotes, from books, from entrepreneurs. This one comes from Joe Polish. And I remember him saying something about the best thing about being your own boss is you are your own boss. Nobody tells you what to do. The worst thing about being your own boss is you are your own boss. Now, I believe also Joe Polish got this quote, he may have, from Dan Kennedy and Lee Miltier. And both Dan and Lee kind of emphasize this point too on getting yourself motivated. We all would like to wish or hope that we could have what they would call accountability, like elves, I guess you can say, or accountability angels. Someone to look over your shoulder and basically say, go do this, go do that. Now, sometimes you have to wonder about all these people that have done great things, success, and have achieved greatness. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm pretty sure not many of them, if any of them, had somebody telling them to do that. Their own inner voice was telling them to do it, to do the greatness, to achieve the goal, break the record, fulfill the mission. So, being your own boss sounds very lovely, intimidating. It sounds great, especially if you're somebody who has been told to do your whole life. Work jobs where you were answering to a boss. And sometimes people that are entrepreneurs, people that run their own businesses, people that work for themselves also feel the opposite sometimes. Because at the end of the day, they have themselves to blame. And sometimes they only have themselves to pull themselves out of something. Being your own boss is not as easy as it sounds. Yeah, independence, doing things on your own terms sounds like a fun, great time, doesn't it? It's not. Independence is something you need to work towards. And we were talking about this the other day, like having freedom, independence, and how they're mutually exclusive from each other. Think about somebody who rents versus owning. The American dream, everybody wants to own their house, own their own house, own their own property, this and that. What they don't see is they also own all the problems that come with the house. And they're stuck with that house like a couch. So you don't know in 10, 20, 30 years from now somebody wants that old couch. You might think you might think that when you buy it, oh, I'm getting such a great deal. I'll be able to flip this house for X amount of money when I'm all done here. Is that the reality? Okay. But anyways, people that rent, I rent. In fact, not to go off on a tangent here, but as I get older and start accumulating properties and start becoming a landowner or a landlord and renting out to people, I would still rent. I would still rent where I live. There's maybe something there that not a lot of people are getting. I know some of you get it. When you rent somewhere, whoever owns the property is going to be responsible, unless it's otherwise noted in the contract, for the majority of all the things that tie to that house. The sewer, the water, the taxes, the repairs, the modifications, the renovations, and a bunch of other things. And when you rent, you might still have to keep up with the house, make it nice in appearance, and mow the lawn, and rake the yard, and shovel the snow. But beyond that, when the faucet's leaking, when the roof is leaking, when there's damage to the house, something needs to be replaced, that person that owns a house needs to be able to respond to that and take care of that. And hey, it's all good. If I own property, I know I'm going to have to take care of those things. And I would rather be reserved for that. Now, when I come home, I don't want to have to worry about that stuff. Do you get what I'm saying? This is the difference between being your own boss and working for somebody. It's the same thing. It's renting and owning. Yes, I want to own, but I don't want to own where I live. I want to rent where I live. Because when I rent where I live, when I'm done, I could just go somewhere else. I could still collect my rent in all those other places, no matter where I move. When you own your own house, there you are. There you are until something better comes along. And something better coming along is not enough to get you to rip you out of where you were basically laying down your roots, if you haven't already, buying this house. So somebody might say, hey, what if you move into this house of yours that you're planning on flipping later, and then as soon as you move in, somebody's like, hey, I'll give you $5,000 or $10,000 more than what you paid for if we can move in now. I'm willing to bet a lot of people are going to be like, they're not going to want that money right there. They're just going to say, no, I want to live here, and they're going to turn them down probably. And maybe it's even $20,000, maybe even more. And they're like, nope, this is the decision I made. I'm going to stick with it. And the funny thing about that story I just made up is that later on, because we don't know what's going to happen with the housing market and the economy anyways, that offer that they got when they initially moved in might have been the best one that they would ever get. And then they go and try to sell the house, they can't even get what they paid for it. Maybe. So I'm not saying, I know I'm going off in a tangent here. I'm not saying don't own your own house. I'm not saying don't go renting. I'm not saying rent. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying that there's a difference in owning And renting, just as there's a difference in being your own boss and being an employee and working under the boss, or having a boss to look up to. And I mean, everybody has a boss to look up to at some point. Like, everybody needs to kind of pay the piper, or, maybe has a partner or significant other, or family member, or somebody that they have to like pay their debt to. I mean, it's very I don't see. I mean, even if you're a king or a president or whatever, a queen, you still have to like serve the people. So there's still like some kind of a debt there to society. Going back to being your own boss and versus being an employee. So like, it's great to like be independent and nobody gets to tell you what to do, but it does come at a price too. It does come at a price when you can't fulfill your obligations and you're falling behind on stuff and you're not, and the economy's not where it's at, and your prospects are, and your customers aren't responding the way they used to. You have to be responsible and accountable for that. Now, if you're getting, most people that are getting paid a wage at a regular job, if the market is whatever one day, or the economy's like this another day, if the stocks are here and the stocks are there, and it might be a slow day, a busy day, all of these things, the company might just not be making any money. Guess what? You're getting paid a wage on whatever contract of you being an employee at. You're basically guaranteed a paycheck no matter what happens to the economy, no matter what happens to the business. When you own the business, it's not like that at all. Everything that you do affects the business, and everything in the business affects you. Just about. So that's like the good and bad part about it. It's like, yeah, it's like, wow, look at that boss over there. Look at that manager. They get to just make their own hours. That also is easier said than done, making your own hours. Yeah, it sounds fun on the outside. Like, wow, they don't have to like necessarily work a 9 to 5. They can work 8 to 4 or 10 to 6 or 3 to 10 if they want, or 10 to 3, doesn't matter. But the thing is it's not so easy to be a self-starter. It's not so easy just to have a set schedule and routines and make your own hours and stick with it, especially when you have that freedom. So the real freedom is not in the freedom. The freedom is actually one of the obstacles, in my opinion. It's one of the things that makes being your own boss the hardest part about it, is having freedom, is having too much freedom, too much time, and too much money to just spend either one of those things and just get caught up in like a loop or in a rabbit hole. It's not, or whatever. It's not all fun and games just having freedom. Like, because the real freedom is in the discipline, actually. If you think about it. When you're your own boss and you've disciplined yourself to act accordingly to your values and what you believe in and what you need to do. I mean, when you do that and you're like in perfect harmony of that, which is not easy to do, that's when the real freedom kicks in. when you've done things on your own terms with the people that you want, at the price you want, when you want, but also like being able to establish boundaries, time boundaries, environmental boundaries, and being able to really stick with it without somebody telling you what to do, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. Once you master it, it's like, sure, it's second nature when you have discipline. But that's where that's one of the misconceptions about discipline and freedom. It's like that freedom is sometimes can be just overwhelming, directionless, and maybe you might just feel guilty. You can't just be stagnant. We're not stagnant, like on a microscopic level even, we're always moving, the earth's always moving, our skin cells are always moving, atoms are always moving, energy's always moving. But it's that stagnation that makes it intolerable. And we're not really built to be stagnant either. And it's very temporary too. But for me, I don't like becoming stagnant and having freedom and just being stagnant, because I'll get anxiety and things like that. So the best thing about being your own boss is you're your own boss and nobody tells you what to do. But the worst thing about being your own boss is you are your own boss. So thank you very much for listening and or watching. Have a lovely day. Peace.